I'm here with Matthew Walker, and he wrote a great chapter on the importance of male advocates for women and underrepresented sects in STEM. Now, the first time I read this chapter, I was blown away because I'm like, how did he know? Like, I totally experienced that going through my degree, and I was like, wow, he got it. He really, really got it. So, Matthew, thank you so much for being here with us today.
No, thank you for having me.
Oh yes, it's been like I know that with your background and whatnot, you've been transitioning into this new role, into your new job. So tell us a little bit about what you do. What is a day in the life of right now?
So right now, I work as an aerospace engineer, um, mostly in the field of more forensic engineering.
Ah,
So I work for the federal government investigating aviation accidents
mm,
and trying to determine whether or not there were any mechanical issues that could have led to or contributed to the accident. I focus on small turbine engines and helicopters.
that sounds so interesting. Like I'm already thinking about the field parts and what you're gonna be getting involved into, but that is so cool. Well, it's cool for
It
me.
is really interesting.
It's definitely cool for me. But let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
Why did you decide to actually write this chapter, Matthew? Like, what was that moment like, I need to write this chapter? Tell us about that.
It's interesting because it was actually one of the other chapter authors for the book,
Hmm.
um, fellow engineer. I had
Hmm.
been sharing some of the stories that I relate in the chapter to her as
Yeah.
hey, you're an engineer. Some of my students came to me and this is what they went through. This is what we were talking about. And she said she could very much relate to
Oh, yeah.
what they had gone through. And as
Hmm.
I tried to describe, like, I don't know if I helped them appropriately, but this is what I tried to do.
Hmm.
It was her encouragement, really. It's like,
Yeah.
do you know about this? You should do this. You should write this down. I was like, really? Because I don't know that I'm not sure how much I helped. And
Hmm.
no, it was at her encouragement. She was like, no,
Oh, yeah.
you really need to reach out. Here's all she gave me all of your
Oh
contact
boy.
information. That was how it started.
Oh yeah, because like without divulging too much of your chapter, you talked about the way that people would come up to you, women would come up to you after class and just ask, can you help me with this? That was a huge problem for me during my engineering, like during my degree, especially I think more undergraduate degree, because it's always at the end of the class, you have all the guys rushing to the front. And I'm like, mm, I'm not gonna go there. Let me leave that one there. I'll figure it out on my own. But just being able to have somebody like a professor being able to say, okay, well, this is what it is, and just explaining that, like that helped so much for me. That's just my story.
Well, and I think part of it was, when I was teaching, I was back at my own alma mater. So I
Mhm.
remembered a lot of the struggles. I
Yeah.
knew in general what the students would be going through. And I knew that I had struggled to go up and ask for help. Um,
Hmm.
and some of the stories that I relate in the chapter, I honestly do not believe that some of the comments that these other students got, I don't think it was because the other instructors or the other students were doing it out of maliciousness.
Hmm.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are some out there that do look and say like, nope, engineering is a field specifically for, the stereotypical white male
Uh-huh.
that everybody thinks of when you do engineering. Um, Honestly, I think a lot of them just they don't necessarily recognize
Mhm.
that the communication needs to be different,
Yes.
right? Engineers, we are leaders, whether we know it or not. And communication is a huge part of being a leader.
Hmm.
When the message gets interpreted wrong, we don't we shouldn't be blaming the person who heard it.
Um,
It's the responsibility of the person sending the message to make sure it gets through correctly, which means you have to know your audience.
yes.
And I can you can speak to a white male engineering student and a female or a different minority or somebody who just doesn't feel like part of the stereotypical main group.
Mm-hmm.
um, you may want to give them the same message,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't give it the same way.
Ah, yes.
You have to recognize that everybody's backgrounds are going to be a little bit different. Everybody's experiences are a little bit different, which means that everybody filters what you say
Mm-hmm.
through a different set of values and experiences and everything else. And if you don't take that into account, you don't necessarily know that your words are not being heard the way you meant
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I love that gem, Matthew. I love that gem.
So I found that one of the most powerful things that I can say was, I understand what you're going through as a student,
Mm-hmm.
but your experience is different from mine. So I can't relate specifically to what you're dealing with. I'm happy to help, even if that help is I'll point you to somebody else that I know who has gone through what you've gone through. Sometimes that was the biggest thing, was just being an ear and
Mm-hmm.
helping point to other mentors and other resources that they could relate to.
That is definitely very helpful because sometimes we really just don't know. And just being able to know who to go to for help, that is the game changer. Totally the game changer. And I know in your chapter you give some tips, some great tips at the end, for anybody else reading the chapter and like, how can I help? Because I think a big thing, just like you said, is just awareness, being aware and, understanding that, certain things will not go over well in different ways, but knowing that helps to diffuse the situation so much more and adds so much value to everything else that's going on. So what will you say to other people just to get them to either join the STEM field or stay within the STEM field? Because we have so many people that, they avoid STEM fields like it's the plague. But there are those that, they're like, I don't know if I can make this in this field anymore, men or women, what will
Mm-hmm.
you say to inspire them to stay within the STEM field?
So I used to joke when I was teaching, one of the classes I taught was thermodynamics for
Oh my
undergrad.
God,
Um,
not my
Hated
best
it as an
class.
undergrad. I ended up loving it as a grad student. Um, and I had it was a joke, but it was a meme that I would start the class out with that said, just
Mm.
remember, without engineering, physics is just philosophy. It's not mine. It's off the internet. I can't take
Oh
credit for it,
yeah.
but it was a good way to get them thinking.
Mhm.
Because I always looked at it as science and math are the foundation, right? That's how we as human beings understand how the universe works.
Yes.
Technology and engineering takes that one step further and says, now that we know how it works, or we think we know how it works, how do we use that to do something good
Mm.
for people, for the world, for the planet, all of it, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not just about making life easier for people, but how do we take better care of the planet? How do we get to cleaner technologies, more efficient with our energy usage, protecting plants and animals, exploring the universe? All of that comes back to STEM.
It does. It certainly does. Full circle.
Anybody who follows like the Artemis launch that happened,
Oh
right?
yeah.
The Artemis launch for NASA, or all the stuff that SpaceX is doing, or
Mm-hmm.
green energy and electric cars, advanced air mobility. All of that's happening because of folks who work in engineering and technology,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't do that work without solid understandings of science and math.
There we
So,
go.
for those who are thinking about it, if any of that interests you, STEM is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, the one I usually hear the most is, yeah, but I hate science and math because they're really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, they're really hard for everybody, including those who go into STEM. Um, we, you and I did not become engineers. just because we thought it was easy.
No, no, no.
None of it was easy. Um, but I used to tell my thermo students when they would be like, "Oh, this sucks. I'm struggling so much." And I'm like, "Newsflash, I struggled with it when I was in your chair too.
Hmm.
I went into the final with a C, and somehow I pulled off a B and ended up choosing to that's my focus in grad
Oh
school
boy.
was thermo." And you're like, "What is
Why?
wrong with you?" I'm like, because it was interesting. The
Hmm.
challenge just made it that much more interesting. And I would share that story to say anybody can do STEM. It's not just those who are good at math
Yeah.
or good at science or, or as the book alludes to, like the stereotypical vision of what an
Hmm.
engineer is. Anybody who is interested in STEM can and should.
Yeah. Just get involved in it because I think STEM has a role to play in everything we do. Like, that's just me
Very
being a little
much.
bit biased, but um, it
I
has a
think
role
we're
to play.
all a little biased. We're already in the
A
field.
little bit, little bit, yeah. But it's so in everything that we do. So getting involved in a field in STEM may not look like what you think it may look like 10 years ago, because there are so many different things coming up, like so many different things. You could be a YouTube content creator and still be in STEM.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
Folks who do, you could be in the movie business.
Yes, and
I'm a
still be
Star
in
Wars
STEM.
fan.
Oh yeah.
Love Star Wars. Disney and Lucasfilm are constantly looking for engineers.
Always, always, you know,
Just saying.
just saying, just saying. But
You
Matthew,
you
thank
wanna
you.
you wanna work on Obi-Wan Kenobi? Like go be an
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah, yeah. Think about it, you know. Thank you so much for your time today, Matthew. Always good catching up with you. I know whenever you're
Likewise.
not so busy, but the book is going to be launched in December of 2022. Look out for Matthew's chapter. It's definitely one that's not to be missed. Such a great chapter. But thank you so much for everything that you do, Matthew, and for helping us along and being such an amazing male ally.
No, thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.